stick with banking, actually. There's so much of news flow. Right now, we're discussing, of course, the details and the fundraise at IDFC First Bank. And yesterday, it was actually IndusInd Bank which was hitting the headlines. The company now has declared that the external audit has found the 1,979 crore rupees discrepancy in its derivative portfolio, which is, of course, a little less than what was earlier estimated. Sources have also been telling us that the bank could perhaps see 3 senior-level exits as this matter is finally put to rest. So, I mean, where does this leave investors when we are talking about, some of these, I shouldn't call them really corporate governance issues, but let's say niggling worries that have emerged. I mean, IndusInd Bank being one of the examples. Hetal Dalal, President and COO of Investor Advisory Services, is with us. Hetal, thank you very much for joining in. So, just to sort of go over the IndusInd Bank example, what does it tell us? Where does it leave us? This derivative discrepancy came out of nowhere. The bank chose not to immediately disclose it, which is why the stock nosedived when they finally did tell the exchanges. And I believe that happened after some RBI nudging. And that is where the issue of investor confidence came about. Now the external audit has happened. Financially, there's not much impact, but it does leave a strange taste in the mouth, doesn't it, when it comes to investors and just clear disclosure?
That's very true. Good morning, everyone. I think the fact that this came as a surprise, it was a delayed sort of announcement given from when they figured it out to when they actually announced it to shareholders. It does leave open questions as far as investors are concerned. I think one of the things we keep telling companies, in terms of trying to build trust with investors is to be consistent communication. Bad news should be delivered faster than good news. You need to keep investors in the loop when some of these things are happening. You're coming down 9 months after, almost at the close of the year, and then saying that all of this was, we found these discrepancies, indeed will leave investors open to thinking about whether there are more issues or not. I mean, at this stage, this issue seems to have been sort of capped. The numbers are out and the loss will be taken in the financial statements. But I think going forward, there needs to be a greater sensibility around communication and being consistent in its approach as far as investors are concerned.
No, I mean, obviously, IndusInd Bank went through a serious amount of price damage, Hetal. Do you think the worst is behind? And, how should investors look at it? Because on one hand, I mean, the analysts will argue about good value. It's a great asset, perhaps good business. But then all this and perhaps impending management changes. We need to know what's the succession plan, what happens after Mr. Sumant Katpalia. Our reporters are telling us that there could be some other heads rolling as well. So from that standpoint, what should investors be doing?
Yeah, look, I think the CEO succession and the fact that Mr. Katpalia is on his way out was news that came out earlier. So everybody knows he had a 1-year tenure. I mean, he has a short window in terms of succession. I think this is clearly something, this entire episode of the derivative book would have worked RBI for sure. And there will be heads that will roll most likely. I think what we're going to expect going forward in our view is that while this issue seems to be curtailed, and I don't expect there to be significantly no news, when you do see a new leadership, typically what you see is a little bit of a cleanup of the balance sheet. The new leadership will always want to start on a clean slate. It's called the big bath. In banks, though, they tend to be well governed and they seem to be, and there are significant sort of checks and balances. Some of these things keep cropping up. I don't disagree, but the quantum and the impact is not as high as you would see as we've seen otherwise in in other companies which are not regulated by or are not in the financial services. So I think by and large, this issue I would say is put to rest, more or less. Will we see more issues? When the leadership changes, you're likely to see some, but we don't expect it to be significantly material. That's what I would look at.
All right. Okay, Hetal, thank you very much for joining in and giving us some perspective and clarity on this development. And hopefully we won't see too many of these because they end up creating a fair amount of uncertainty for shareholders. Thank you for joining in. We'll take a quick break on that note, come back on the other side, and we'll have Ben Powell of BlackRock Investment Institute joining in on Trump tariffs and the global uncertainty.